Hi, I'm Marci Kobayashi, and I'm back again with another excerpt from my book, Finding Yoyu. Yoyu is a Japanese term, and if you're not familiar with it, then I have another video on the channel here called Do You Have Yoyu, which tells you more about it and how I discovered a more deeper meaning of it. And it's not so important that you know what that means at this moment to enjoy the excerpt. But some people are new here, and I wanted to give you a quick rundown of who the main characters are. We have me, of course, my husband, Akira, my father-in-law, Masamoto, but I always refer to him as Oto-san because that means father in Japanese, and then Reiko, my mother-in-law, and I always refer to her as Oka-san, and that means mother in Japanese. And really, the book is about the year when all four of us needed a lot of help. First, it was my mother-in-law, Oka-san, who needed some help because she was having surgery and needed some long-term care after that. And then we discovered that my father-in-law, Oto-san, needed help because he had Alzheimer's. And then soon after, we discovered that my husband had stage 3 colon cancer. And finally, I needed help. I was tired exhausted from helping with everyone else, but I was also trying to go through a career change. So we'll get to that later on. But today I want to talk about or share about Oka-san again, and thank you. A couple people have asked in the beginning. I had several excerpts that were all about her, and then the last couple of weeks I haven't said anything, and so we're going to jump in at the point where I'm moving her to a long-term care facility. So when we moved her from Hiroshima to live with us in Tokyo, we had her in a hospital until she could stabilize, and then we then found a new place for her to stay. So that's where this excerpt comes in at. So let me jump over and I will read. So sit back, enjoy, listen, do whatever. Here it goes. Within a few minutes of arriving at the nursing home, it was clear that we were not prepared. The nurse in charge of Oka-san had come down to the lobby soon after we arrived. She was there to take us to Oka-san's new room and help me get her settled. Our nurse was visibly shocked to see that Oka-san had arrived on a gurney. "We expect Reiko to participate in all the routine activities. She can't be in bed all day. Why isn't she in a wheelchair?" The nurse called for a wheelchair and an assistant to help her transfer Oka-san from the gurney. Oka-san had spent most of the last 6 months flat out in bed, so I knew it would be a struggle for her to sit up for any length of time, let alone keep her head up. I cringed watching Oka-san slump over and strain to lift her head, but trusted that the nurses knew what they were doing. As we made our way around the circular building into the elevator, the nurse explained that Oka-san needed to get dressed every morning too. Pajamas were for sleeping at night, and regular clothes were required in the daytime. I felt foolish and flustered. I hadn't prepared anything. It hadn't even occurred to me. I wished Akira was with me. Because Oka-san had been bedridden, we assumed that the guidelines for what clothes to bring didn't apply to her. As we rode the elevator up to the second floor, the nurse insisted that I prepare 7 days' worth of clothes and 3 sets of pajamas. The elevator door opened to the second floor, and I could see no one else was wearing pajamas. She suggested I either go home and get something or go buy something. Either way, she wanted me to go right away because they would not wheel Oka-san around in a hospital gown. The nurse was firm about this and promised to resume the orientation as soon as I got back. I made a list and headed out the door. I probably could have told the nurse to please make an exception and that I would be back the following day with new clothes, but I kept quiet. The difference between the hospital where Oka-san had been surrounded by sick and dying people this morning was refreshing. I smiled at several residents as I made my way back to the elevator, and they smiled back. This facility was a long-term recovery center where people go after illnesses and injuries to make sure they are fully recovered before going home. Looking around, staff were engaging the residents, and there were even residents talking amongst themselves. The sun streaming through the bay windows added to the upbeat vibrancy. Secretly, I wondered what they would do if Okasan didn't get better. Would they kick her out if she didn't show any signs of improvement? Since I had arrived at the nursing home in a taxi with Okasan, it seemed wiser to shop for clothes nearby. It would take too long to find a bus, get home, and drive back again before visiting hours were over. Besides, I knew there wasn't much at home to choose from. We didn't really think about clothes when we brought Okasan from Hiroshima. There was a little store near the nursing home that catered to the senior population in the area. The nurse had recommended the store, so I headed there first. I nodded to the clerk and noticed one other shopper as I started looking around the store. Right away, I saw blouses and t-shirts that would be the perfect color or style for my mom. Thinking about Okasan, my mind went blank. Suddenly, I had no idea what I should buy. It felt like a huge responsibility to pick out clothes for this person. I had known this person for almost 20 years and had visited her nearly every day for the last 5 months, yet I had no idea what were her favorite colors or styles. Akira would have said anything was okay and that I shouldn't make it a big deal. Still, I took this task seriously because colors matter. They mattered to the person wearing them, and they mattered to those who were visiting. I walked up and down the aisles, fingering the clothes and fretting over what to buy. Over the years, it was not that I had never been shopping with Okasan. In fact, that was about the only thing we ever did together outside of the home. However, our shopping was for food, not clothes. This day had started out okay, but now I felt so inadequate. Again, I wished Akira was with me. How had we missed this about the clothes? Akira and I had visited the nursing home together several weeks before. Knowing that I would be alone on move-in day, we filled out all the paperwork in advance. We were sure everything had been prepared for Okasan's transfer. In the greater scheme of things, I knew that it didn't matter what I bought and that the important thing was that she had something to cover her body. Even so, I struggled to choose. I had conflicting thoughts about color, style, cost, and durability. I wanted to do right by her and make her look good. I wasn't sure if I was more worried about the approval of my choices from Okasan, the nurses, or Akira. Of course, I wanted Okasan to be happy with her new clothes. I also wanted her to feel that she was dressed appropriately. If you're from a small community, image is almighty, you know. I wanted to do right by the family. I knew she and her son would be happy if they thought people looking at her were thinking, "Now there's a lady dressed well and appropriately for a nursing home. Her family takes such good care of her." I also wanted to get something colorful, not the dull, muted, Jimi colors many older women lean towards in Japan. Something bright would be nice for us to look at and would lift her energy. But what colors did she like? What if I got her pink and she hated pink? And what colors did she like to wear? I loved orange, but I certainly didn't want to wear it. Then I worried about the style. I should get something easy to pull on and take off, something the nurses could help her with easily. Buttons? No buttons. If she was getting dressed on her own, then a pullover would be good. If the nurse was helping her, something that came together in the front would be better. Velcro? Maybe I should get layers. Summer was coming, but it would still be chilly for a few more weeks. She would need a sweater, perhaps a fleece jacket or vest. I should get a lap blanket. I could get a turtleneck for layering. Oh no, can't do that. She doesn't like turtlenecks. At least I knew that. What about a V-neck? What about a scooped neck? Did it matter? I circled the store, again, lost in my inner dialogue. I should make sure everything coordinated so that she could wear the shirts and pants interchangeably. No, I should just get matching sets so it would be easy for the nurse to see what went together. How about the size? The clothes would be washed and dried by a professional laundry service, and they might shrink. Sitting in a wheelchair with pants that were too short would be chilly and look strange. What size did she wear now? She had lost weight, so I could probably go down a size anyway. But then again, the pants had to fit over her diapers. I put things in my basket and took them out again. Over and over again, I circled the store. I felt the clerk glance over at me several times. She was probably afraid I didn't speak Japanese. I was grateful for the common assumption because she left me alone. I kept seeing things that I knew would be perfect for my mother or even grandmother. I knew what to buy them. I knew their size. I knew their likes and dislikes. How could I have known Okasan for so long and never thought about these things? Okasan used to love to go shopping. I never really had the opportunity to go clothes shopping with her because we were always home for the holidays. The holidays in Japan meant Golden Week in May, Obon in August, and New Year's. In the Kobayashi family, food was the focal point for the holidays and really all the family gatherings. Going to the store was an all-day event for these holidays, and Okasan would prepare days in advance with a list of everything to buy scribbled out on the back of an ad from the newspaper. On the big shopping day, after eating breakfast, we would all pile into the car and drive 30 minutes into town to the nearest grocery store. Okasan didn't have a driver's license. Coupled with the remote location of their home, it meant shopping day was a big deal, a weekly ritual regardless of the holidays. It wasn't like now where, from our condo, I could get to the store in 5 minutes on foot. I could get to the store, buy whatever I needed, and still be back home in less time than it took to drive to the nearest store from their home in Hiroshima. Pushing my thoughts of Hiroshima aside, I finally made myself choose a few shirts and pants and headed for the cash register. As I hefted the bags up the hill to the nursing home entrance, I knew there were a few winners in the bag and a few that were iffy. Back on the second floor, I borrowed a marker and scissors from the nurse's station. I sat on Okasan's bed, cutting off price tags and writing in her name on the labels while she watched, quietly propped up in bed. I couldn't tell whether or not she was pleased with my choices. I masked my insecurity with a big smile and a chatty monologue about the colors and styles I had chosen. When I visited Okasan the next day to bring a few more things, she already seemed better. She was still struggling to hold her head up, but she seemed more awake and aware of her surroundings than she had the day before. Someone had wheeled her out to sit in front of the TV with the other residents, and someone had dressed her in one of the new outfits. She looked great. Worried that Okasan might feel lonely in her room, I brought 2 little stuffed animals that my mother had been gifted when she came to live with us in Tokyo for 10 months. When my mom returned to the U.S. after her stay in Japan, she left these stuffed animals in her room. Though I still thought of that room as my mom's room, it was now occupied by Otosan. I knew the stuffed animals would be happier with Okasan. I left Okasan in front of the TV and slipped into her room. I tucked the teddy bear and rabbit into the hand railing so she would be able to see them from her bed. I don't know what Okasan thought of them, but they were on secret guard duty to me. They were a combination of my energy and my mom's energy there in the room, protecting Okasan when we were not around. Leaving the nursing home on the second day, I felt relief settle in. Okasan had everything she needed. I knew she would be able to stay there for at least 3 months. We had some time to figure out the next step. Even though the facility was in the same city, it was further away than the hospital where she had been for the last 5 months. No one expected me to visit every day, and I no longer felt it was necessary either. I could now shift my attention back over to Otosan and just maybe my business. Okay, that was a long one. And next week I'll be back with another section, probably about Otosan, but perhaps about Akira and our relationship, because it starts to get a little crunchy at this point in the year in the book. So if you're enjoying the story and you'd like to hear more, it'd be great if you'd subscribe. And if you know anybody else who has been a caregiver for someone either with Alzheimer's or in the hospital or who has cancer, then you might share the story with them, and it might give them a little hope or comfort knowing somebody else in the world has been through it too. So that's all for today. Thanks for tuning in.